Where's Reed? Oh, there he is. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the new school year. I know they can't wave at us, but I would like to welcome the returning and new members of our Career Center JROTC, Air Force JROTC, and would everyone please rise for the presentation of the colors? Please be seated. Okay, we're headed right into announcements. I have several to make. I'd like to announce the following meetings. On Tuesday, September 12th, the board would hold a work session on middle school boundaries at 7 p.m. in room 101. On Friday, September 15th, the board would hold a committee of the whole meeting at 8:30 a.m. in the school board conference room. That is a meeting of the full school board, and it is open to the public. Additional events that some board members will be attending in the next week include the first meetings of our advisory groups. They are the Facilities Advisory Council and the Budget Advisory Council, both meeting on Monday, September 11th, and on Thursday, September 14th, some board members will join the Advisory Council on Instruction's first meeting. I would like to welcome in our audience today, we have Joshua Bannon, who is an 11th grader at Wakefield. There he is. Joshua is here. We love to have students here, and we'd love to celebrate the fact that they've come to join us. Joshua is working toward his Eagle Scout and is joining us as part of the requirements for that. I have two additional announcements. First, as announced at our last school board meeting, the school board is looking at our facilities naming procedures. We will be going forward with a review process, which we will share with the community at an upcoming school board meeting in the next few weeks. As with all board items, the plan will be posted on board docs the Monday before the meeting, so the community will have time to look at the process. The first stage of the process will be a staff-led process that will focus on reviewing our current naming policy and making recommendations. We will have a committee. It will be diverse, and it will be asked to provide criteria to the board on how we should be thinking about names going forward. As with all of our processes, this will be a transparent process. There will be many opportunities for community engagement, and we encourage folks to weigh in throughout the process. My second announcement is simply to thank the superintendent and our staff, as well as the school board, for quickly and effectively responding to the president's announcement on Tuesday about the end of the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program known as DACA. Tuesday was the first day of school, and it was a beautiful day with welcoming, caring adults at every one of our schools. They were out greeting their students as they arrived on the bus, or they came with their parents, and we all on the school board and our executive leadership team and superintendent were out there too. The statement we issued yesterday reinforced that welcoming spirit, and I know we're all committed to bringing that spirit to our work every single day. As a next step, we are working with the county board on a joint letter to our Congressman Don Beyer and Senators Kane and Warner to support their work in enacting legislation to protect our dreamers. Again, thanks to you all for being positive and welcoming as we kick off this school year. And with that, I will ask if other board members would like to make announcements or share any of their experiences from the first week of school. Ms. Van Doren.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening to all of our families and the Arlington community. It was a great year. I had a great time, a wonderful time visiting all of my liaison schools except one, which I will visit next week, and watch everybody enter. The one thing that I'm struck by is as we grow as a community, we have to be smarter and smarter about how we get to school and how we transport ourselves, both staff and students, to school. And it was great to see bike racks full and kids walking and crossing guards doing a fantastic job. In addition to that, and related to transportation, we began an initiative last year between the county, a joint process with the county to collaborate more on really doing smart transportation and smart choices for transportation to school. So we now have a joint county schools committee called the Arlington Committee for Transportation Choices, which supports an ongoing daily work that's being done by the staff, the Joint Committee on Transportation Choices. We can't do without acronyms. But the goal of that is to really help all of us to walk more, bike more, take mass transportation more to the extent possible, and to take every mechanism we have in the community to support that happening. So with that, we have a wonderful video that I'm going to play in just a moment called The Switch, which highlights the innovative partnership between Arlington Public Schools and Arlington Transportation Partners, which is funded by the county. And that aims to positively impact the lives of those who live, work, and learn in Arlington. So it is both a corporate initiative, a schools initiative, and a county initiative. And so this is the first in a series of videos about Arlington employees, the first about Arlington employees. So our school employees are the first Arlington employees to be featured, making the switch from driving alone to work to a more active and sustainable approach. We have lots of examples. You'll hear more, I'm sure, you get to school, because there are people who bike across state lines to school. There are some amazing stories about how people get to school. But in this situation, they were using these employees are using incentives for carpooling and for biking. The carpoolers are Elizabeth Team and Sean Jones of Oak Ridge Elementary School. And the bikers are, Elizabeth Team and Sean Jones are the bikers to Oak Ridge Elementary School. And Dia Hester and Sharon Ruggieri are at Arlington Community High School. And they get a special perk because they carpool to work. So with that, you're going to see this, and this has sort of put Arlington on the cutting edge of supporting our own employees, finding alternative ways to get to work and, in our case, to school. So with that.
Good morning, Dia dear.
Morning.
Ready to rock and roll? So there we go.
All right, bye. Bye, singletons. If you were HOV, you could be in this lane right here. All right, we won't blow too much, will we?
Rideshare is the way to go. Yeah.
The work that Arlington Public Schools is doing to help teachers and staff make the switch from driving alone all the time is innovative, because it is the first program in the nation focusing on staff commutes. So this is the Oak Ridge Elementary School priority carpool parking spot that I created for the staff here at Oak Ridge. I actually spray painted this myself. Because we were able to put in priority carpool parking spots at a couple of the schools, that's really encouraged the staff there making that switch.
Yay, there's our empty spot.
Arlington Community High School ended up with a couple of carpoolers fighting over the parking spot.
High five for carpoolers, yay!
I feel like I need to specify that I had permission to do this, that I don't just go out rogue.
Yeah.
I always joke about my career as a graffiti artist, but that's not true. It's really great to be able to work with these really creative, energetic people. That's what's been kind of cool about Oak Ridge Elementary School.
Hi, Rebecca. How are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you
Rebecca Kennedy, the assistant principal, she started biking. And so her leadership encouraged a bunch of others to do it. How's the commuter lounge going?
The commuter lounge has been a real success. Teachers tell me that that's what made the difference for them.
I think at first it seemed overwhelming to me. The thought of, biking and not having your car seemed a little scary and overwhelming. But then once I got into the habit of it and I saw really how simple it was.
You never really forget
Right.
how to ride a bike. We were at a staff meeting in the morning, and they said that all Arlington Public School employees could get a free Capital Bike Share membership. I pay absolutely nothing.
You are ready to go.
Yeah. It's nice because it's like exercise that you're getting.
And it doesn't seem like exercise. Let's wave, let's wave.
So we're going to do this next year, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. It saves me time, money,
It's like a nice stress relief as well.
stress is the big one.
Yeah, it kind of helps you relax after a long day at work.
Well, we call it carpool therapy.
Peace out, Sam. Ta-ta-ta-ta. Ta-ta-ta-ta.
Thank you for watching that for a minute. I think if all of us challenge ourselves to find different ways to get to school, I think we will all find ourselves a lot happier when we're at school. And it's a mind switch for many of us. And as I approached many of the schools, I saw all the lines and the difficulty that people had. And I would encourage PTAs to consider alternative drop-off places where the kids might be dropped off and then use crossing guards to cross so that we can minimize the impact of the cars and the lines at each school. And if the kids can bike and walk safely, and staff can as well, we should all consider doing that. So thank you for listening to that, and I'm sure we'll have more of these to come, right, Mr. Chadwick? Thank you.
Who's next? Ms. Talento?
So I have 9 liaison schools, and I am a math person, so I was like dividing them, doing 3 on Monday, 2 the rest of the week, and of course traffic did not allow me to do that, so I had to rearrange my math problem. So I got to all of them, and I will be visiting 3 tomorrow, and I'm very excited. It's been a great week to see all the students coming to school. I have a daughter in high school. She is my last one. And to go back to elementary school and to remember that when I dropped her off, I was also holding back tears. And to see the parents this year holding back their tears, or the kids clinging onto their mother's legs, which was me as well in kindergarten, and to know that I am ending this journey really has been an amazing way to start the year. And I am so grateful to be in Arlington, a community that has so much community in it. So it's been a great experience. I'm looking forward to seeing my other schools tomorrow. So if you see me, I'm your liaison school board member. Just wave, pretend you know me. We'll say hello. And I hope that everyone has had a great first week at school. It's been very exciting, and I'm looking forward to a wonderful year. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Goldstein?
Yes, thank you. So I want to endorse the comments of my colleagues. I've also had a great first week, enjoying the reports of the great first week that I'm hearing when I go to my liaison schools. I've got 8, was able to go to 3 on the first day, 2 yesterday, 2 today, and I'll go to 1 tomorrow. I want to particularly highlight what I saw at Jefferson Middle School on Monday, because they have a radically new traffic pattern there because of the construction, which has displaced all of the old bus drop-off and teacher parking and parent drop-off and student walking patterns, completely displaced that. And it was different, and everybody, acknowledged it was different, and it's going to take a while to get, to make it perfect. But it was evident that it was working well because of good planning, by the staff, good support by transportation and by Parks and Rec and by the police department, and particularly the flexibility on the part of the parents and the students. So I want to make sure I highlight that and thank everybody involved, and I'm sure the next time I go back, it's just going to be all perfect, smooth sailing.
There was a lot of
Thank you.
smooth stuff going on the first day of school, actually. It was a really well-organized day. Really nice. Mr. Lander, did you have any comments?
Welcome back. Have a great year.
All right. He is demonstrating the fact that I've requested that board members try to keep their comments concise so that we can get through what we expect to be some very long agendas going forward. Not quite so much tonight, but certainly as we go into the year, we have a lot of things going on, and we're going to have some pretty long board meetings. So with that, we come to the consent point of our agenda. Oh, I'm sorry. Dr. Murphy, did you have anything you would like to share with us this evening?
A few things, and I won't have the brevity that Mr. Lander had. So we did have a wonderful first day, and I've been traveling around visiting schools prior to the start of school as well as this week, and just want to say thank you again to all of the staff. Many of the photos that we're going to share with you here are a result of social media, and we had a hashtag APS is awesome. And through our PR liaisons and also our volunteer liaisons and our web page liaisons, we got a lot of good information out to our communities. I know all of the board members were out to schools, so we're members of the executive leadership team, and you'll even see a little bit later this evening the county manager. So we have a first full day report. I'm just going to touch on that a little bit briefly here, just with some of the announcements. As part of that, one of the things we embarked on was a campaign for a back-to-school safety message. So we had two students, one from HB Woodlawn and Yorktown, develop this message. You're going to see this in just a second, but you can see the effect that it had out there with social media. Maybe Jeremy, if you can cue that up now. So thank you to Cole and Flora for pulling that together. It was very, very popular. You can also see, I think, if we go, can we go back, Jeremy, one? There we go. You can also see as far as trending for that particular day, we were one of the top trending Twitter's accounts. So congratulations. It shows you the impact that we can have out there in getting the good messages out. So congratulations to all the schools for the work they did in that arena. We're also continuing to highlight the importance of starting the day off with a nutritious breakfast. And you can see the variety of choices that we have in our school. You know, each year I meet the teachers as well as part of new teacher orientation. And one of my messages that I also reinforce with them is to start the day out right with a breakfast. While my favorite is steel-cut oats, you know, breakfast of your choice, but steel-cut oats is a wonderful way to start your day, and it seems to be catching on. But we want to reinforce that message not only with our staff, but also with our students. So thank you to Amy McCluskey and her team as we continue to push forward on that. We also had a number of activities that occurred prior to the start of school. So I just want to highlight them. You can see that here in some of the tweets that we have on social media. I made mention of the new teacher orientation. Prior to that, we also had the Festival of the Minds, and that was hosted by our Department of Instruction. And then we also had the APS Day of Learning on August the 29th. So we've had quite a bit of professional learning over the probably the 2 weeks leading up to the start of school. And I also think teachers had a good amount of time to prepare and prep for Tuesday. And that was very evident, Dr. Cannon, in your comments about the fact that we did have a very, very smooth start. So I think there are some big dividends to coming back early. I do want to point out the Festival of the Minds is an optional event, but we had great participation from our staff. So that, again, is recognized and also appreciated. Last year, when we were pulling the calendar together, there's been some requests to also include religious observances on the calendar. So we just wanted to highlight that we have included many of those religious observances that are marked as well. And we're going to be pushing that calendar out so folks have that. And I think that was a request that we had heard. So that was addressed. Prior to the start of school, I pushed out a letter that kind of reinforced our mission, our vision, and our values here that are reflected around the room. But the overriding message, which I had some concern about many of the things that are happening across the nation, that we make sure that our staff, who I feel has a real responsibility for kids, emphasize the idea of being kind, also respectful and calm, and hopeful. So this message was communicated and is going to continue to be communicated to our staff, because when children come to school, sometimes they may be confused, they may not completely understand, and they really look for the adults in their lives, which they've established relationships with, to kind of provide that clarity and also that foundation. And I think our staff does a very, very good job and is part of the community for that reason. So we've reinforced that with our message on the 31st, but I don't think this is anything new, by the way. It was just highlighting some of the things that I think are happening and the responsibility that I think all of our staff has to making sure that kids are safe and happy and in an environment where they can learn and things that happen to them are very positive. Coupled with that, yesterday the school board, along with me and the staff, sent another message to our students that are protected by DACA and also to their families to reaffirm that school is a safe place for those students to continue to come. While there are many things that still need to transpire as a result of some of the actions taken by the federal government, the message here is please continue to come to school. School is a safe place for you, and that we provide the best hope as far as how we move forward, and that we'll continue to be here for them. And I think that's an important message that reinforces also the message that was sent from our colleagues on the county side as far as our belief system, as well as the importance of really providing a space for the American dream to happen for everyone. So I wanted to remind folks about, we just pushed out that message. Last spring, or actually it was late winter, early spring, there were many conversations that were occurring in our community about diversity, and some of those were focused specifically with the school board student advisory group. And this was led by them to some extent, along with the school board. So what we did is we went out to all of our high school programs. That's our 3 high schools, Wakefield, Washington Lee, as well as Yorktown, as well as all of the programs that are associated with high school students. Langston, New Directions, the Career Center, Arlington Community High School. And we had conversations that were facilitated and supported by the Student Advisory Board, the School Board Student Advisory Board. This evening, when you folks get to the consent agenda, we have the final draft copy of that report that we will be presenting to the board, and that report will be made available. It's also just been provided to our principals as well, so they're going to take that information and review this and provide some of the feedback. It was a facilitated discussion, and it was really about what does diversity mean to you? And there's a series of questions that were facilitated as part of that discussion and then are captured here based on each of those particular school or program sites. So I think it's very insightful. I think the students really provided some good feedback. But we're going to take now the next step with this as far as where we go. And later this fall, it's tentatively planned for October, we are going to bring together representatives from all the schools and programs, coupled with the school board, members of the ELT, as well as principals from each of those respected schools and programs, and some of the school board advisory committee members, to have a facilitated discussion where the students can really provide a firsthand report out. This is really building for us to look at some type of diversity framework. The board has talked to me about bringing forward a proposal for a diversity framework. So I'm in the midst right now of developing that. I'm also working with Tanya Talento as the school board representative as we begin to pull those things together. So what you should be looking for, and we're really in the planning stages since we just got this report back, is that look for some type of October event where we'll have some type of culminating activity that will really lead us then into how we progress with our diversity and equities discussions across the district. I also wanted to make you aware that while we've had over the course of the last school year discussions about personalized learning, about digital citizenship, about our one-to-one initiative, that we have, again, from feedback that we received, have produced a personalized handbook for students and families. That is going to be available at all of our back-to-school nights, and I'm going to report on that here in just a minute. And it's also going to be available on the website. So encourage families to look for that document or access that document. I think it's got some valuable resources in it. And coupled with the professional development that I made mention of earlier, we did have a number of sessions in both Festival of the Minds as well as leading up to the start of the school year that really addressed the personalized learning and the updates associated with that. I know Ms. Van Dort, as well as all the board members, are advocates of looking at transportation alternatives. And one of the things in cooperation with the ART system, or Arlington Transit, we are making available to students at a discount, K through 12, the ART bus ride cards at half price. Students also can get 2 hours of free bus transfer, and you can pick these cards up at the commuter stores. So really encourage students to take advantage of this. This is a good way for them to have access to different parts of our community, but I also think it sends an important message that if we can use public transportation as opposed to individually driving cars, it really helps our community and sends a positive message about how we are becoming a smarter community. So remember, I ride cards, half price. I want to thank the county manager. I also want to thank the police chief. You may have seen a lot of police support out in our community over the course of the last several days. And that's a very coordinated effort. I do want to also recognize Cynthia Johnson for her work in that arena. While we've outlined a series of safety reminders, I think the importance to know that kids are going to be coming to and from school and that we need to have an awareness about that. But we also, as we did with our little PSA in the beginning, are trying to get the students involved and also realizing this message. So we'll continue with that. I do also want to make mention that we do have the stop bus arm cameras, and as you've seen, many other districts have sort of followed suit with that. So Mr. Chadwick, I know, was sort of on the leading edge of that, and I think that also has paid dividends for us in the sense of people slowing and in fact stopping when we have school buses and children entering or exiting. All right, back to school nights, just quickly outlining. We've got elementary school back to school night coming up on September 13th. The following evening, we've got back to school night at HB Woodlawn. We've got back to school breakfast, which I just want to make note is a change in schedule for Arlington Career Center and then Arlington Community High School, and that's going to be on the morning of September 23rd, and that's a Saturday. And then that following week, high school back to school on the 27th and middle school on September the 28th. Now you're going to hear this multiple times this evening, and that's really the purpose of it. I'll probably say it once, Lisa Sting will say it once, and then I'll repeat it again. But we want to begin to get folks with the multiple messages that we know that are out there. We want to begin to introduce the idea about Engagement Day, which is also slated for Saturday, September the 23rd. That's going to be a little bit later in the morning. That's going to be from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. That's going to be at Kenmore Middle School. A little bit later, I'm going to be coming back with the 2017-18 action plan. There's going to be a number of things that I'm going to be covering that are outlined there about boundaries, about the strategic plan, our instructional vision, capital improvement. We've actually got 13 projects that are slated for this year. That's building off the work that we did last year on the 3 to 5 year plan. So we want folks to begin to mark their calendar. We're going to also be pushing out some announcements about this. But September 23rd from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., it's going to be set up like a fair. And so there are going to be different places where people can travel to find out about different pieces of information related to each one of these particular projects. So people can just drop in, sit in various sessions that we're holding, or go to the sessions that they are interested on that particular day. So more information to follow. We'll repeat that several times. Lisa will probably present it a little bit differently than I did, and that's a good thing. But you know, we look to ask that you come out on that day and hear a little bit more in detail about what's going on. So that is it for now. I will be back though.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much. And now I believe we are ready for the consent part of our agenda. May I have a motion?
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. And I would like to share, as Dr. Murphy alluded to, as part of that consent agenda, we did accept the diversity report that Dr. Murphy reported on, and I think gave a little bit of a outline about next steps going forward on that. And thank you so much, Dr. Murphy and Ms. Talento, for your hard work on getting this to this point, and I know there is more to come. So, Ms. Talento, did you want to share any thoughts about this project?
Yes, I just want to encourage everyone to take a moment to read the report. It really is representative of the student voice. And just for those of you who aren't familiar, the Student Advisory Board is made up of representatives from every high school and every high school program, just about. And they really took a lead on this. And they went to every single school and facilitated this conversations at the schools, bringing in students from those schools into those conversations. And the Student Advisory Board representative from that school participated. So as I always find, raising children, while I'm doing everything I can to teach them every life lesson I learned, they teach me something every day. And this report is inspiring and thoughtful. It's amazing to hear their voice and to see how much further they take diversity. So please take a moment to read it, and I really look forward to pursuing this topic this year. Thank you.
Ms. Van Doren, did you want to make
I
comment?
just wanted to comment that in addition to the diversity report, which is a great report, by the way, I commend it to everyone, we also made some complementary ACI appointments that complement the appointments that we made in August. And I would like to encourage PTAs, if you haven't had a chance to appoint someone to ACI, to please do so. There's one representative from every elementary school and 2 from middle and high schools. And this is going to be an excellent venue for each school to have its voice heard, and each school community to have its voice heard, in particular with the strategic plan that we will be developing this year. There will be a strategic planning committee, but the ACI, one of its focuses is going to be on providing input to the strategic plan. So if you have any questions, you are welcome to contact me. I'm the liaison from the board to ACI, and I did do some explaining to a few new PTA presidents, you know, exactly what the responsibility is and what's involved, and I'm happy to do that anytime, because many of us came up through ACI, and it's a great place to learn about the system. So I wanted to give it a plug, say we're getting a good group of people together, and there's room for more, and we'd love to see strong representation from every school community. Thank you.
Okay, great. And we are now at the point of citizen comment on non-agenda items, and our scheduling continues to go well. We have promised not to hit this point until 7 p.m. so that people have some certainty about when they need to arrive if they want to make comments. Do we have speakers?
Yes, ma'am. We have 2 speakers.
Okay, so I will start then with our guidelines for public comment, and then Ms. Elliott will call the speakers. The school board welcomes public comment. Generally, school board members do not respond to comments during the meetings. If they've not already signed up online, speakers must submit a speaker slip to the clerk before the agenda item they wish to speak on is called. Each speaker may speak for up to 2 minutes. There is a timer and to help you keep track of your time, and speakers should conclude their remarks when the buzzer sounds. All comments should address a matter related to Arlington Public Schools. Speakers should be courteous and address their comments to the entire school board. Speakers are called in the order in which they sign up. If you have written comments, please give them to the clerk. And finally, we do ask the audience to refrain from applauding. It takes away from the opportunity for the next speaker. If you do want to show your support, we ask that you silently knock like this. It's a nice visual way of doing that. And yes, we've got a demonstration from Ms. Gant. Thank you very much. So Ms. Elliott, please call the first speaker.
Thank you. All right, our first speaker is Major Mike Webb.
Good evening, board members. I want to thank you, first of all, for deciding to consider the names of our schools and making sure they reflect our community. However, I guess at the same time that statement was coming out, we also had a petition that ended up going up to rename Washington Lee High School. I'm not a resident of Arlington. I've only lived here since 2007, but I went to Washington Lee University. I was at first concerned, one, because I'm a Washington Lee graduate, drank beers with Bob Lee V. But what concerned me was just looking at the petition that kind of came up, the momentum that was being developed. It's a national petition, not really being drawn primarily from Arlington, but also it has 3 just blatantly false statements about Robert E. Lee. Robert E. Lee, one, there's a claim that he, abused slaves and all this kind of stuff. Robert E. Lee owned slaves for 3 years, and they weren't even his slaves. They were his wife's slaves. He was running around 1859 in Harper's Ferry. And just statements like this. I mean, one of the popular phrases right now, especially on the left, is truth to power. If we're going to have truth to power, we have to start with truth. And so what I'm doing is I've started a petition to save the name of Washington Lee. So since we'll be doing community input, let you know that there are people out there that actually do like the name Washington Lee. Right now, I think we have about 500, close to 500 online, starting to do a manual petition, getting actual signatures of people actually here in Arlington. I was actually kind of surprised, especially like when you're online, you get basically, it's just names, but actually going out into our community and actually seeing a diverse group of people that actually like the name Washington Lee. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right, our second speaker is Philip Biorlo.
Before I begin, can I get a clarification on time? I was watching the videos of the last board meeting and saw that people were given 3 minutes to speak. I've timed the remarks I've got to 3 minutes. Can you indulge me for one more?
Yes, I apologize that the switch happened between August and September. As we started the new school year, we have gone to 2 minutes.
Okay, well, I promise not to abuse your kindness. Dr. Cannon, members of the board, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Phil Biorlo, Washington Lee, class of 1966. I've submitted a written statement that lays out in detail the historical and policy reasons for my opposition to changing the name of our school. Tonight, I'd like to discuss briefly one more reason why I think this is not a good idea. My boyhood home was in Dominion Hills. I attended Ashkelon Elementary, which was named after the home of President James Monroe. President Monroe owned slaves. The street behind my old house is Patrick Henry Drive. Patrick Henry was a famous colonial orator, lawyer, and tobacco farmer. He owned slaves. James Madison gave his name, or rather it was taken, for the neighborhood next to mine, Madison Manor. Madison was the co-author of the Federalist Papers and is often referred to as the father of the American Constitution. He also was a slave owner. The proud history of Arlington is closely tied to the history of our state and both its northern and southern neighbors. Once we start down the road of erasing or hiding parts of our history because they are offensive or shameful when viewed through the eyes of today, where do we stop? I understand and support the removal of statues of Confederate leaders, especially those located in or near courthouses, parks, and other public places. Those monuments were not erected as memorials to the Confederate war dead. They sprung up mostly between 1900 and 1930 and were sponsored by organizations. Am I still
Thank you.
okay?
Thank you. No, that is the 2 minutes.
Okay.
We're
Thank you
happy
for
to
your
take your
time
written
and attention.
comments.
All right.
Thank you so much for all the speakers that came out tonight. We always welcome public comment. We are now at the point of our monitoring items, and it looks like we've got a double header with Dr. Murphy coming up. We will start with an update on the first day of school.
So I was wondering if I could ask Jeremy Kohler to step out from the back for just a minute. So I want to recognize Jeremy as part of a team. John Stuhldreher. John is not here tonight, but let's give Jeremy a big round of applause. Jeremy and John are responsible for pulling together and have done that for the last several years, the video that you're going to see here. And the challenge with this is all of this happens on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then we need to be able to present this on Thursday evening. So what I think they do so nice, and you've seen a variety of things they've produced over time, is the fact that they are able to really capture what is going on out in our schools on the first day. So we're going to lead with the video, and then what you're going to hear is just a little bit about how we prepared from me, very brief, and then I'm going to turn it over to some of our staff. You're going to hear directly from some of our principals, some of our staff at the high, middle, and elementary school levels. So, Jeremy, you want to go ahead and roll the tape?
Every year for the first day of school, we bring the band out, we play for the students as they are coming. It's really just an opportunity to welcome everyone to the first day of school, to let them know that we're excited for them to be here. It's a lot of nervous energy, a lot of anticipation, and hopefully this is something that can soothe some nerves and just get people smiling and excited to be here.
Happy first day of school. I am thrilled to be here, having been the principal of Swanson and now the principal of Yorktown. I'm glad to see our incoming freshmen, and I understand what they're feeling, a little butterflies, a lot of excitement. The scope is clearly larger, but we're ready for our students.
A great day for Arlington County. I'm here to support our partners in the public schools. We're always thrilled every year. The schools do such a great job. They're such a great asset to the community. We have our police here helping out all morning with traffic here and at all the other schools, and just so excited to be here, and congratulations on your new principalship.
I do want to say, Bridget, it was nice to see a lot of your Swanson kids walking in this morning, and when they saw that familiar face, kind of eased their mind a little bit.
So, I mean, you can go out into the courtyard for lunch. You can eat out here on the floor if you want. We just help the new students, the transfers who are coming from different schools, to acclimate a little better to Yorktown.
I transferred from China, so that was kind of, holy cow, what is this? So that was really helpful.
Having someone to talk to is always important, especially if you're coming from somewhere new.
They help a lot just to make everything a lot easier. Just to help us know the school better and to make us feel a lot more welcomed. How do all of the kids fit in there?
Oh, we got 3 periods.
Sean.
We're actually in a Virginia Preschool Initiative classroom today, and these guys are just getting started.
Well, we know that early childhood education is critical for students' success, and so our pre-kindergarten program supports our youngest students in developing academic, social, and emotional skills. Okay, so sometimes it's hard for our students to say goodbye, maybe even harder for parents. She's going to the Clark's room, and I'll come and check on her.
Remember what I told you? It's scary, okay? You're going to jump off the bus. You're going to be like, I had the best day ever. My first daughter was the same. She was crying. She was like, I don't want to go, I don't want to go. But she jumped off the bus with joy, so I'm just looking forward to that.
But once they're into the classroom and they're working with our staff members, they're usually very excited. We sometimes do a little bit of consoling and wrap our arms around them. But in an hour or two, they'll be just raring to go, and tomorrow they'll be at school with a smile on their face.
Awesome. Find a book.
And I'm excited to introduce two wonderful people who have pretty much grown up through Arlington, as many of our employees do. How do you feel the first day of school?
I'm excited to be here in Mr. Clark's classroom today. Some of his up-and-coming VPI students spent 5 weeks of the summer with him preparing for the first day of school. They are already knowing how to turn the pages the correct way and hold the book the proper way. A lot of these kids are already doing pre-reading, so just giving them that little extra start over the summer help prepare for the first day.
I can learn.
First day of kindergarten.
Definitely a little mixed emotions, but very excited overall.
Minimal tears. Minimal tears. None from her, minimal tears from us.
Yeah. So welcome to Ashlon Elementary School. We're here with Brianna McLean. You are kicking off the brand new year as the principal, so tell us a little bit about that. We're proud of you.
Thank you. I'm so excited. I love the Ashlon community, so it's been just so rewarding and amazing to start the year and to see all the families, especially today, the kids coming back and the parents. There's just a great environment and atmosphere of expectation and excitement.
Nice to see you. How's your first day? We're here with a third grade class that is really demonstrating the kinds of things that we want to see in our classrooms this year. As we work to build inclusive environments and focus on the whole child, making sure that our students are safe, engaged, healthy, and supported.
I'm looking forward to just the growth that kids make. I mean, they grow so much just socially and emotionally. We're really continuing to leverage becoming global citizens.
Global citizenship, I think that's exactly what we're all about, living in Arlington, being a close community and protecting each other in the world.
Well, we've been out here this morning greeting kids at different schools, watching them come get off the bus, walking with their parents. They've got smiles on their faces. Sometimes they look a little nervous, and when we say, yay school, they put a smile on their face. They're ready to go. We're really excited about the school year.
Safety for schools starts even before school starts. So we partnered with Arlington County Police Department.
Main concern on the first day of school is just making sure the students get back and forth from school safely. Make sure the pedestrians and vehicles are all going in a safe manner in and around the school zones, and just make sure kids get back and forth so they can get to their classes when they're supposed to be there on time.
Morning. So our message for this school year is one that's pretty simple, and it's create the future. Because everything we do at Williamsburg Middle School this year, it's going to be an effort to create the future and prepare our students for the future. So that's transitioning from elementary to middle school, and from middle school to high school and beyond.
Good. Good way to weave that theme into the threads that all the kids are experiencing.
Absolutely.
Very good.
My advice to sixth graders is to just be yourself and have fun, because you're going to be in middle school for 3 years and it is a really fun experience. First day! Yeah!
Well, I'm excited to meet all my new teachers, and hopefully I'm able to make new friends and see my old friends and have fun and meet up with my old teachers, and same with my new teachers, and have fun meeting my new teacher who was my old teacher last year.
So far, so good. Really, the focus right now is just to figure out their lockers and get them down into our homeroom.
Sixth grade transition, all about getting them oriented to the building, the routines, their teachers, their schedule. We're doing block scheduling for the first time. We want these kids to be ready and prepared to learn. Our mission here, our goal here is to help kids create the future.
My name is Miss Kutcha. Like, if you have a question, put your hand in the air. And I'm going to be your new art teacher for the year. I just graduated from VCU down in Richmond.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. It's my first year teaching, and I'm super excited to be in Hoffman, Boston, teaching in a cart, and then also halfway in the classroom.
Today is our most favorite day of the year because we are here talking with the talent that we've brought to Arlington Public Schools. And I'm here today with Giovanni at Hoffman Boston. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you. It's my second year teaching, and it's my first year teaching in Arlington Public Schools. I'll be teaching physical education here.
Well, we appreciate you being here, and thank you, and we hope you have a great school year.
Thank you.
Hi, we're here at Swanson Middle School, and obviously today is the first day of school, but it's also a special day for Renee Harbor, the new principal here. It's her birthday, so happy birthday.
Thank you so much.
Happy first day of school.
Thank you.
So what are you looking forward to with the start of this school year?
Well, first of all, it's an awesome gift to be starting the first day of school on my birthday back at Swanson, so I'm loving that. I'm just looking forward to working with the students. I just came out of our 8th grade assembly and just feeling the excitement and the intensity of the kids. Just really looking forward to getting back to work with the kids.
Sahar, how are you doing?
Good.
Good to see you. How have you been?
Good.
Good.
I still remember the last time we saw each other at Wakefield.
At the Wakefield graduation, right?
Yeah?
Yeah, I saw you sitting up there in the Constitution Hall, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. And who graduated? Your
Brother.
Your brother?
I graduated 2019.
2019. Oh, okay. Then we've got a couple more years of doing first days, right?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. There you go. All right, thank you. So let me pass along a little bit of information as far as where we are and what we've done leading up to the start of school, and then you're going to hear firsthand from some folks, and I'll do some introductions in just a minute. I do want to clarify here with the first day enrollment, we still have students who are coming in. Pre-K, our pre-K program started on Wednesday, and that will go. Kids will continue to enroll over the next several weeks, so we'll see this enrollment fluctuate. The official count is September 30th, so that's at the end of the month. And we also have students who we record as no-shows after 10 consecutive days if they don't show up. So the enrollment's going to fluctuate here a little bit. What we're trying to just provide you is a little bit of a snapshot as far as where we are. So on the first day, we had 26,938 students who were registered at our schools. The spring projection was 27,276. So based on the last year's official count, which was on September 30th, 2016, we've increased by 786 students. I've made mention that we're going to continue to monitor this, and what we'll probably see happen is we'll see a little bit of a drop because of the no-shows, but we'll also see some increases because of those pre-K students, and we'll continue to update the board as well as the community as far as where we are with that. But it looks like we'll probably meet or be slightly under what enrollment projections were for last spring. And we've got some case history here that we watch very carefully. This is actually something we start watching back in June, because what drives this is how we staff our schools. And the message here and the importance of that is that every child on the first day is in a classroom which they will stay in, so that we don't have kids transitioning halfway, maybe through the month of September. And I think it's really important to establish those relationships and those bonds. You saw us out at Yorktown. That's where we started our day prior to kicking off at transportation. But I want to thank the county manager. I also want to thank all the support that we received from the police and from safety. You can see that Bridget Loft is just exuberant, should I say, and All of our high schools bring in freshmen for the morning hour, and that's supported then by the upperclassmen, and then all of the rest of the kids, or the balance of the kids, arrive a little bit later in the morning. So that freshman transition period is very helpful, and there were a lot of upperclassmen around sort of showing the folks the ropes as far as helping them prepare for the first day of school. So what were some of the things that we needed to get ready? You may have seen buses traveling the streets last week and kind of scratched your head and said, why? Thank you to Mr. Chadwick and Mr. Angel Garcia Blanca, getting our transportation folks. They were out actually practicing. We've got 171 buses this year, 151 routes, and there's close to 17,000 students who are eligible to ride. I do want to offer my apologies for maybe some of the things that we still need to correct with our bus transportation. We are addressing those and trying to get in front of those. Please be patient with us. A lot of this has to level out because we also have to recognize that some of our buses may be overcrowded, and so we want to be able to address that. We also recognize that some of the routes may be a little light, so we may be making adjustments. Again, we're trying to be very responsive. Please understand that we're going through a little bit of a period of adjustment, and I know Mr. Chadwick and his team will continue to address some of those things. So your patience is recognized and also appreciated. We had a number of things going on with design and construction services. I'll just bring to your attention that when I first came to Arlington, one of the things that we did was that we traveled around on Labor Day to see many of the things that were happening if they had come to fruition, and we've kind of kept that tradition in place. And so this past Monday, Mr. Chadwick and Mr. Chambers and I took a travel around and saw some of our sites. We visited some of the ones that I think were probably a little bit more significant as far as making sure they were ready, but you can see that we've increased capacity at Wakefield and Gunston and Kenmore, as well as the Career Center. We're in the final stages. There was actually 5 stages at Abington's project. We have completed 4 of those, so congratulations to and thank you to Joanne Wetta and her whole team out there at Abington. I also want to make a special note of thank you to the custodial staff team out there. When we arrived, I think, John, it was about 6 in the afternoon there at Abington. There was a whole team there, and the building was getting finalized for the next morning, and it was in very, very good shape. So to everyone who kind of pulled it together to get that project wrapped up and ready for Tuesday, much appreciated. And then we've gone ahead and started construction at the Wilson and the Fleet Elementary sites. So those are underway as well. This is just kind of a little bit of a screenshot of some of the things that are going on. And I sort of made mention to this as far as the teams that were out getting our schools ready after a major construction. And I must say Abington looks very, very good and is in very, very sharp shape. We also had a number of different projects that we had transpiring over the summer with minor construction and major maintenance. And so we brought a lot of those to fruition. All of those were completed that either affected school operations. There's a small percentage of them that are still outstanding, but those hopefully will be wrapped up. A lot of our work, so we don't disrupt the daily operation of school, needs to occur in the summer. So we're on very, very tight timelines. I know Mr. Jim Meikle is here. He's been instrumental in that, as well as Mr. Bell and Mr. Towler, in making sure that we're in good shape and ready to go. So thank you to them for getting that prepared and ready. Now, there are a few folks that I want to introduce, some who you've already met through the magic of video, and some that you'll hear from directly. But I'll mention all of them again, and then Mr. Boykin, if you want to make your way here. Mr. Brian Boykin, our new principal at Williamsburg Middle School. We also have Keisha Bogan here, and she's here from Jefferson, and she's supporting one of her teachers who we're going to hear from in just a little bit. Dr. Donna Snyder is here from Randolph, and she is here with 2 of her teachers who are going to speak. We have Jasneez Sani, who's here, assistant principal from Wakefield. You're also going to hear from Judy Apostolica-Buck, and I didn't forget Ellen Kennedy. Ellen is here with Keisha to support the folks from Jefferson. So what we've done in the past is we've provided an opportunity for you to kind of hear firsthand from some of our principals, from some of our staff at the high, the middle, and the elementary level, and hear them talk a little bit about the first day and some of the preparation leading up to the start of school. So with that, Mr. Boykin, I'll turn the microphone over to you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you to the school board and members of the executive leadership team. First, I'd like to say thank you for this opportunity to share my process in preparing for the first day of school, and maybe I can provide a little insight into what it took to get us there. So just a moment of self-disclosure. As a first-year principal, I was really scared the night before school. And I guess I was excited, but I was nervous at the same time. So when I woke up at 3 a.m. Tuesday morning, I started reflecting on every conversation I had with every parent, every student, every staff member, and some of the other members of the Arlington Public Schools staff that I was in contact with prior to. So I'm a sports fan and I enjoy reading. So I thought, how could I put those two things together? And I decided to use a reference from Mitch Albom. He's a writer and he wrote the book, The 5 People You Meet in Heaven. So to kind of sum up my story, I thought I would highlight the 5 people / departments that you have to collaborate with to prepare for the first day of school. And I know there are several departments, but I decided to only pick 3 that probably received the most phone calls from me. So in no particular order, the first one, human resources. And that's to make sure that our schools were fully staffed with highly qualified educators to make sure we're ready to meet the needs of all of our students. The second one was facilities and maintenance, and that's to work with them to make sure that maintenance was completed and any minor construction projects that needed to be done at the school. The third was the Department of Instruction, and we needed to collaborate with them to make sure that our instructional leadership team had all the materials that they needed and that professional development was already organized for the staff. The fourth was the PTA, and we had to work with the PTA to plan to host several back-to-school events, socials, orientations. Just last week, we had 5 orientations and 3 social events. And last but not least, my staff. I worked with the staff to make sure that classrooms were ready, procedures were in place, units of studies were reviewed, and common expectations were established so we knew what our direction was for the school year and how we wanted to make sure that our students had the best experience. But most importantly, as a staff, we made a collective pledge to appreciate the past, utilize the present, and not be afraid to create the future at Williamsburg Middle School. Because as we talk about the school, you're going to hear all year about us creating the future, because everything we do, it's going to be to create the future, whether it's building the future or writing the future. But we want to create the future at Williamsburg Middle School. So that's just a little insight into the preparation and the first day of school. The first day of school went very well. The second day, the third day, and we've got 1 day to go, so I'm really excited. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. And I apologize. The next person you're going to hear from has actually been in school for a couple of weeks now. And I neglected to introduce her, but she's going to come and speak to us, and that's Judy Apostolica-Buck. So Judy had the pleasure of starting back in August with her team there at Barcroft. And I know a lot of the board members came out on that first day. And so, Judy, you want to tell us a little bit maybe about that first day, but also how it's been going since your first day back in August?
Wonderful. Well, thank you for the opportunity, Dr. Murphy and the school board. So it's been a great week for me because I've had probably the least stressful week of anyone else in the school system. A little bit different than August 1st, as I think the superintendent received many calls from me. So, and it's really neat to be here tonight because we had our staff meeting, essentially our 1-month staff meeting today. And we finished it with a celebration of success because we had set out some goals for the month of August. And we met those. So we had 2 goals, so I'm going to work backwards a little bit. We had 2 goals. One was that every single student would be independently reading instructional level text of their choice for essentially their age plus 2. So, you know, an 8-year-old for at least 10 minutes, uninterrupted, for a total of about 30 minutes. Because we know that independent reading is one of the biggest indicators of long-term success. And then the second thing was to continue to implement responsive classroom with a particular focus on our hallways, our transitions, our lunchroom, really setting up an environment that students are happy and comfortable in. And so we actually did student surveys and teacher surveys, and we were able to celebrate that success today. We actually did it with some sparkling cider and a cake and a toast to Team Barcroft. So that was really exciting. But just a little bit that led up to that, to me, there's nothing more exciting than starting a new school year because it's a redo. Right? Every year you get to do better than the year before and learn from what you did the year before and apply it. So it's a really exciting time. And I think as an administrator, it is some of, you know, other than students, it's some of my favorite things because it truly is the best Rubik's Cube you'll ever do in your life, which is putting together, I think, all of the pieces to ensure that when teachers, you know, step on in school that first day, everything is set for them to do the job they need to do. And I think there's so many things that we do organizationally that ensure that every single moment of the day is used effectively, and really then that's how we get the most success for students. So things like, you know, master schedule and where classes go and all of those pieces, being incredibly intentional, allow us to maximize every resource. Just a quick little example is if you ask any teacher, they'll say, oh, I want to have reading from 9 to 11 every morning. And that sounds really lovely, but when you have the entire school having reading for the first 2 hours, it's really hard for 2 reading teachers to work effectively with 26 teachers. So things like thinking about that master schedule, making sure every teacher has access to ESOL specialists, special ed teachers, reading teachers, math coaches. And then also the other things that really matter to kids and putting together of things like lunchroom and recess, because I know most of the time what you're going to hear and what I think speaks to quality of life for students is, you know, were their friends at recess? Did they have to wait too long in line? You know, those kinds of things really matter. So summer, I think, allows us to be incredibly intentional and make sure that instruction's ready to go, but also that a student's day, since they're spending the majority with us, is really a happy place. So yeah, we've had a great time at Barcroft. We're excited about the next 8 months as well, and that gives you a little bit of a glimpse of the beginning of our year.
Thank you, Judy. Now, I'd like to ask John Stewart and Katie Smith to come up. John is an English teacher at Wakefield, and Katie is a social studies teacher there, and give you a little bit of insight on how their school year started.
Thank you, Dr. Murphy. Esteemed members of the school board, amazing executive committee, and fabulous members of the community here to support public education. My name is John Stewart, and my colleague Catherine Smith and I are fortunate enough to be teachers here in Arlington, and doubly fortunate to be teachers at Wakefield High School. The atmosphere at Wakefield for the past few days has been bright and chipper, intermixed with periods of hugs and handshakes and warm welcome backs. There's a lot of love in that building. But that frenzy of happy activity didn't start 2 days ago. Teachers have been long preparing for the new school year, developing curriculum, meeting with their colleagues, taking courses. And for some teachers, the preparations for the new school year began the moment the last school year ended.
So at the end of June, John and I went up to Goucher College, and we spent a week there up in Maryland. We attended an AP Summer Institute program where we learned how to teach the new AP Seminar course, and I know we're both really excited about this program. And so there we got to work with an AP consultant. We worked with other teachers from basically all over the Mid-Atlantic region, and we learned about the AP seminar and the whole AP capstone program. And we learned about the curriculum. We learned best practices for how to teach the course. And we learned how to build our own units around that AP seminar curriculum. And I know that we are both so excited to have this new course in Arlington County at Wakefield, and I think it's going to be a big success.
Very briefly, we have 90 very brave students who've signed up for this course, which is being offered for the first time. And on the first day, we were able to describe to them what this course is. And what makes it unique is, unlike other AP courses where you sit for a single exam at the end of the year, the entire second semester is a series of trials that determines their AP score. And much like a teacher could not help a student on a test, for the entire second semester, we cannot help them at all. We can give happy encouragement, but they're on their own. So to prove that these students are not only brave, but resilient, after telling them this and seeing their jaws drop and lots of questions, they still managed to show up on the second day of class. Thank you.
So thank you, John and Katie, and you folks did highlight one of the new programs that we have at Wakefield High School, and I appreciate your leadership and also your bravery on taking that on as well, and I think that'll be a wonderful addition there to Wakefield. I'm going to transition now to middle school, and we've got Caitlin Bennett. If she could please come up and tell us a little bit about her role there at Jefferson. She is a reading teacher there. So how did your first day go?
Good evening, esteemed members of the board and executive leadership team and everyone here tonight. First, I'd like to thank Dr. Murphy for inviting teachers to speak about the exciting things going on around APS during pre-service and the first week of school. For the last few years, to capitalize on the excitement of the beginning of the school year, Jefferson has engaged our families during pre-service week by taking a parade float out into the community. Mr. Siegel, our student activities coordinator, hooks up huge speakers and a barbecue grill on a float on the back of his truck, and we load it up with staff members and drive around Columbia Pike, down to Barcroft, and over 50 to Long Branch, pumping the summer jams and delivering lunch to our current, past, and future TJMS families. You haven't seen anyone excited for school to start until you've seen Miss Bogan waving off a parade float and calling out, "Can't wait to see you on Tuesday," to unsuspecting middle schoolers walking down Columbia Pike. It's a sight to see. Our new assistant principal also had a chance to introduce himself to the families and some students. And alumni were really excited to see their former teachers out in the community and tell us how excited and fearful they were about going to high school. We had students and parents lined up for hot dogs and dancing in the streets to Despacito. It was really a great way to start the year. So carrying that excitement from the party float into my own classroom, this year I'm teaching reading strategies and working with the struggling readers and writers in grades 6 through 8. Just like the start of school, a lot of students are really excited about reading, but there are also students who see it as anxiety-inducing, stressful, or even just boring. And fighting those feelings can be tough, but it's really my favorite part about teaching reading. I fell in love with reading when I was in middle school, and I get to relive that love every day, all day long. Research shows that a lot of students do lose that love of reading between grades 4 and 6. And as a reading strategies teacher, my goal is to reignite that spark by sharing stories with students. And I read out loud to them every day, especially in the first week of school, hoping to hook them to a character or a story and remind them what they loved about reading in those early years of elementary school. Over the summer, I read about 15 young adult books and reviewed them on my Instagram. It's at Mrs. Bennett Reads, if anyone would like to follow it. It's pretty great. I spent a lot of summer reading books that my students can read, and so that I have book suggestions that I can be authentically excited about introducing to them, and to make sure that there are choices that reflect our diverse student body. And I have a lot of highlights of my summer reading. I could talk about books, about young adult books forever, but my favorite one that I read this year was K.A. Holt's House Arrest. It broke my heart. It's the journal of a student who's on probation after stealing a wallet to pay for his little brother's medication. And it's a wonderful, wonderful read. Today, my students in class took a survey about their reading interests, and tomorrow when they come into my class, they'll each have a stack of personalized reading recommendations, about 4 books per student. And I couldn't possibly be effective in matching students with books that will interest them without reading a ton over the summer. And I also couldn't do it without all the resources that are provided in APS, like our classroom libraries. And so I'm very thankful to be here at Jefferson again, and in a community that really enables us to cultivate lifelong readers.
Thank you, Caitlin. I also want to ask, was Miss Smith and Miss Bogan on the float and participating actively? Yes? Yes? All right, happy birthday. Thank you both for coming. So there must be something about that, because I'm hoping Shannon and Moises will talk a little bit about the parade that was held down at Randolph prior to the start of school. So we've got 2 teachers here from Randolph. They're going to talk a little bit about their first day, and I also had the pleasure of visiting their classrooms. So turn it over to you guys.
Thank you, Dr. Thank you, members of the board, leadership team, Dr. Murphy, for having us speak today. I feel like we need to work on our parade. We did not have a grill or a boombox, but for next year, definitely. We had an amazing parade to try to get kids excited for back to school, but the reality is, much like at Wakefield, back to school started for us really the day the kids left last school year. We've been spending copious amounts of time in the building and outside of the building, learning. In fact, I think Dr. Snyder said there might have been 4 days where we didn't have staff present. This is about, in the building. So this is really less kind of about the first day of school, because learning's never stopped at Randolph Elementary.
So saying that, I just want to share some of the opportunities that us as a staff member had during the summer, and as well as the students that had. We were engaged in professional learning related to reading, math, and IB. And also, all the staff participated in responsive classrooms. So this is the first year that school-wide we're launching responsive classrooms. So if you actually walk in the classrooms, you will see that every morning, every student is engaged in morning meetings. So we're trying to build a community that welcome everybody, and everybody feels safe in the classroom. Also, we provide many amazing opportunities for students. So one of them was traveling trolley. So we invited families over the summer to come one of the Wednesdays during the month of July to travel from the school to the public library, and there they share stories. They had a time to actually check out books, and they came back to the school. We also invited throughout the summer, the first week before school started, first grade and second graders to actually come to the school to do benchmark testing. Yes, testing. It was actually to ensure that and target as soon as we can reading strategies the first week. So hopefully we can start tomorrow if everything goes well. And also upper grade, fourth and fifth grade, we had book clubs during the summer. So every Wednesday during July, they came in an hour before the traveling trolley so they can discuss about what they're reading throughout the summer, and then they had the chance to go to the public library. So, and they're actually working on the Battle of the Books that we will hold in October.
Absolutely. So, and then for our little list learners, we spearheaded our new transition to kindergarten, our countdown to kindergarten. So we hosted 35 students
over a 2-day period and just really spent half-day sessions with them, going over rules and procedures to make the transition into kindergarten and that first day of school a lot less stressful for both kiddos and parents, as you saw in the video earlier. In addition to that, we had our parents participate in conscious discipline workshops while their kids were in those sessions. On kind of a pairing of that is we asked parents, because we really feel like at Randolph that the connection between the teacher and student is super important, but the connection between teacher and parent is even equally as important. So we asked them if we could do home visits. So 77% of our parents who participated in our transition to kindergarten hosted us, and we were able to meet with parents and kind of walk them through what the first day of school would be like and what the school year would be like. What I'm most proud of that is in talking to one of my parents, she confided into me that she was actually thinking about sending her child to another school, and because of all the initiatives and reach out and engagement that we've done, her decision to send her child to Randolph has been affirmed. And so I know that next year we'll be here and be able to talk about the growth of our programs. So thank you very much.
Thank you to all of our teachers and our principals who came out this evening. We very much appreciate you coming out and sharing some of your stories and some of the things that happened over the course of the summer. That completes our first day report. A lot of good news, and I think hearing kind of firsthand what's going on out in our schools is very helpful, not only for the board, but also for our community. So lots more to come.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you to all of you for spending some time with us and sharing. It really was wonderful to hear and very inspiring. Really, really enjoyed it. Stick around if you want for more information, but we also understand that sometimes people do kind of, decide that they want to move on with their evening. So, yeah, let a little bit of wrestling happen here. People don't need. Do you all need a break? I don't know why they're not staying. This is great. This is fun stuff.
They're all going to celebrate the birthday.
Oh yes, that's right. That's right. Ms. Boggan's birthday. We are transitioning to a new topic, also with Dr. Murphy, the 2017 to 2018 Action Plan Update. Dr.
All right,
Murphy.
But I'm going to be assisted on this one by Lisa Stingle in our planning office. So last year, we really began these superintendent updates as a way or a measure to communicate to the broader public and to our families what was occurring in our school, what we had slated either coming up immediately or that was going to be happening over a course of time. So a lot of this is getting the message out. This evening, what we're going to do is really begin to set up many of the things that are going to be happening over the course of the year. There are some things that are pending that are on a little bit of a shorter timeline. But again, I think we have a very ambitious schedule here. It is very mapped out, so there are a lot of things that need to occur, and that's really related to our instructional programming and then making sure that we have both positive and inviting learning environments for students to engage in. The backdrop of this is, you may have recalled from last year's presentations, the 3 to 5 year action plan, and that was something that was initiated as we looked out to clearly communicate to the community many of the projects and initiatives that we had in place, also coupled with the fact that there was a great deal of planning that was going on to make sure that they were aware of that planning and how they could become engaged, how they could become more knowledgeable, and how they also might contribute to the process. So this backdrop really just shows a host of those different planning documents that we have in place. I'll just highlight one this evening, and that's the AVSAP, the Arlington Facilities Student Accommodation Plan. I just want to highlight that one only because that's going to be coming to the board here very shortly. That's part of the preparation for the capital improvement plan that you folks will see after the budget later in the spring. And we've got some new details and a new way of presenting the AVSAP, but that'll be coming forth here a little bit later in the month. But you can see we have a host of different plans that are in place, and we pay very close attention to that. I think one of the pieces that's becoming very evident, what is our mission? what is our vision, what are our priorities, and that's around creating the best learning experiences for our students. And you heard that echoed here this evening from our principals to our staff, many of the things that we've already shared with you in that first day of video. You also recognize, based on some of my comments, we're continuing to grow. The reality of that is something that we need to be recognized. That's also in the face of evolving state and educational requirements that are changing, and we'll continue to kind of update the community and the board on that. As a member of the Governor's Standards of Learning Innovation Committee, some of the things that we're looking at is around assessment, but also coupled with that, looking at high school redesign. And while the focus may appear to be on high school, it's really not. It's on the K-12 program to make sure that students, when they get to high school, that they are prepared. Finally, the reality of this is many of these things, and you'll hear this play out with my comments and Ms. Stingel's comments, are very complex and they're very overlapping initiatives as we move forward. So the intricacy and the planning and the attention to detail of that needs to be brought to our strict attention. So while I believe there are 13 projects and initiatives that we have slated that are represented here, what we've tried to do is cluster those in buckets or specific areas. So you'll hear us talk about new policy and policy revision. You'll also hear us talk about some operational planning. You'll hear us talk about prep for new schools and program moves, and then also capital initiatives. We're thinking as we bring these things forward, it will be helpful for people to kind of understand how the different pieces fit together, and also as opposed to talking about maybe 13 individual projects, that we've clustered them here in these categories, and that'll be a little bit helpful to see how they do overlap and also how they connect. So I'm going to turn it over to Lisa here to kind of lead us through the next steps with this, also how we're going to be engaging the community and sharing some of this information, and then also about how community members can participate. So Ms. Stingle.
Good evening. So one of the things we're trying to do with a lot of these processes is put some standard practices around them so it's easier for people to find out what we're doing, understand what we're doing, learn how to participate, and have the same expectations to be able to find it. So with each of these projects, what you'll see is some early information. Prior to actually the community engagement process, we'll be sharing what are we doing and why, background information, so they know if they can look at it and say, do I need to participate? How they will participate. So we'll call out what's going to happen and what we're asking of them. How will their feedback be used? We want to make it very clear in how we're using it and transparent that this is what's shaping our recommendations as we come back to you. We'll include the schedule of engagement events and school board actions so they clearly understand the timeline we're working within, and we'll have communication via multiple methods. So people will make it clear that people can come and participate in person, they can participate online, they can continue to send information through email, and we reach out and meet with them as needed. Then when we actually go to the engagement part, that's when we're beginning to capture that community input. There are going to be multiple ways to participate. Again, they can do it in person, they can do it online, and we're also working with ambassadors and liaisons. So each school, we've actually worked with the principals. Linda Erdos' office has helped us reach out to the principals to identify ambassadors, parent volunteers, not necessarily those same PTA people who are at every meeting and doing things already, but newer additional parents who can actually help keep those messages going between what we're doing and what's happening at their school. If they have multiple communities within their school, we've asked them to identify parents from each of those. And again, they're helping us make sure that the things we're doing centrally are getting to families at the school, because sometimes some of the things that come through may not, from a school talk that comes from the central office, may not have the same meaning as if it has from a parent at their school or a liaison. We're also working with our principals to make sure that they're going to be sharing this information with their staff. Their staff are people that our parents go to and trust, and we want to make sure that our staff have enough information and can say, you can go online and find this. This is where you can get that information. And we'll have clear time frames, again, for the whole decision-making process. Everything will be rolling out on Engage. You'll start to see some more details there next week. And then I want to again mention what Dr. Murphy talked about in an earlier presentation. On the 23rd, we're going to have a Ways to Engage with APS Day. We have 4 hours at Kenmore. We are not expecting people to come out for 4 hours. We're hoping they stop by for maybe 20 minutes, learn about the calendar and what's coming up this year, those 13 processes that we talked about. There'll be information about those. There'll be people there to help answer questions on those things that we know now. For some of these things, we won't know it for a while. For the processes that are happening next spring, we're still continuing to shape what that's going to look like. But what we will be doing is gathering their questions. So not to necessarily answer it immediately, but as we work through the process, build it into what we are able to provide. So we'll have information about major community processes that are upcoming. We'll also have a place where they can learn about how to provide feedback and how to engage. We're actually hoping those ambassadors and those folks that we have in the schools stop by that day. This is a good chance for them to make a connection. And we'll have some other activities. We're hoping to do something to gather some feedback on the strategic plan, some of the initial brainstorming from the community. What do they want to see? So it should be a good day to come out and actually learn more and learn how to connect this year. It's not the decision-making process, but it's a conduit for sort of getting that comfort with it. All of this will be available also online following the event. So if you miss it, it doesn't mean that you've missed it, but missed the opportunity to learn the information. It means you won't get it in person, but we'll be around and you can still contact us if you have questions. So going into the different groupings of projects, first we're going to talk about the new policies and policy revisions. So later this fall, there will be a community engagement process around the acceptable use policy. I know we've heard a lot about students' use of devices, and so that will be happening, and you'll hear more about that at the next meeting. So that's one of our earlier processes. Inclusion starts in January, so I think we're aiming to have some early information coming out around the middle of November. So you'll start to hear more of that in October. At one of the school board meetings, we'll begin to roll out some of this information. Options and transfers, last spring, we actually, you adopted a new policy, a revised options and transfers policy. Part of that process actually directed staff to come back and look at three additional items that we didn't address, which includes alternative approaches for lotteries, extending that sibling preference that we have at elementary school to the secondary option schools, and defining option schools. Last week, we had a work session, we discussed this. As we looked at the strategic planning process this year, we thought it was an opportunity to include that, what is an option school in the K-12 alignment within their charge. They're looking at a vision. Part of the vision is what do we want for instruction, and so we've included, I think we agreed when we left there last week that that would be part of that group's charge. Then we'll come back and actually address these other options after the strategic plan is done. Group 2 includes prep for new schools and program moves. So this is the big one. This is the one that our office will be leading on. These other ones, the instructional ones that we just talked about, Dr. Natras's staff will be leading those, but we'll be supporting them and helping those things get off. Our office will be leading an elementary school boundary process this spring. So early information will be coming out when we come back in January. In February, that community engagement process will start. The Montessori move is taking place and planning is already underway. I know Wendy Pilch, who is here for Dr. Natras tonight, is taking a lead on that and actually already reaching out to those communities to begin to plan for those discussions. There'll be more information as we move forward. Middle school boundaries. So we've done some background work to get ready for this, and one of the things that was done this summer is a review of planning units. Last year when we did the high school boundary process, what we realized is that some of our planning units really are different than others. They have a lot more students. They were disproportionate, and as our choices were made, there were some planning units that were small that we used in a lot of our scenarios because they helped us make up the numbers of students we had to move. This review has come up, and we've had the community make suggestions to do this at different points in time, and I think school board members have also suggested it. So we had an external consultant look at our current planning units. They've been in place since 2001. There hasn't been a lot of changes. I think there've been a small number of planning unit splits, but not much. Enrollments increased by 7,000 students. So the planning units we had in 2001 look very different than they do today. And the consultant actually recommended breaking up some of those larger planning units. So what we had last year is a total number of 216 planning units. For the changes we're making, it actually takes those and it doesn't create new planning, it splits current planning units. So what you'll see now in our planning units are the average number of elementary students in a planning unit was 59 last year. Now it's 37. For middle school students, we went from 25 as an average to 16, and high school from 31 to 19. I think last year we saw a couple planning units that were in the 100s. What we did not split is we didn't split apartment buildings, but there's some considerations here where we're taken that include total number of students, civic association boundaries, some roads and natural boundaries. Next week, I believe on Tuesday, we have a work session, and what we want to do is meet with you to discuss our proposed approach for addressing the middle school boundary process. I think we're going to try some things here that are a little different than what we've done in the past, and what we're hoping to do is to have all of our data and everything prepared prior to beginning that community engagement process. Last year, we learned a lot of lessons, and so it's shaped how we're approaching it this year. What we want to do is share our proposed methodology for addressing the 6 considerations that are in the policy. You readopted the policy last spring, and the considerations remain the same, but we want to actually tell you how we're using them, and if we need to adjust them, it's early enough that we can make those adjustments. We want to talk about potential program moves. As we're doing all of our middle school boundaries, this is the one time where it makes sense to say, are our programs at middle schools located at the right spot, given where our students live and the programs in place? We also want to talk about, and we'll bring you numbers for all of these, what grade should open at that school. I know sometimes when we do things, we move one class as they move through. When we open a new school, we can't open with just 6th graders and feel like it's going to resolve our issue. So what we want to do is show you the scenarios with opening with 6th and 7th, or 6th, 7th, and 8th. And then we also want to look a little bit at the sibling preference and some things so that we know when we go to the community engagement process sort of what the parameters are that we're asking for feedback on. Operational planning, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. You do the budget every year, so that process remains pretty much the same. We're going to be coming back to you with some more details on the AFSAP, and what we're going to try to do is streamline that a little bit, so you're going to get decision points. Right now, I think the report includes a lot of things that are already published, so we're going to try and really focus it on those decisions that need to be made in order to get us ready for some of the changes that were made in policy last year, but also for the CIP framework. The capital improvement plan will begin in the spring. I think it's important to point out that some of our capital projects this year will inform that work, so it's actually an ongoing conversation all year. Some of the things at the Career Center and other places will actually feed into this. And we'll have details on that process in February. Strategic plan is underway. We're going to get going on that. And earlier today, a school talk message went out seeking volunteers to participate on the steering committee and actually to let us know if there's some other pieces that they'd be willing to help us with. So you're asking them to define the mission, vision, and core. You're asking them to look at your mission, vision, and core values and articulate the goals and aspirations for our students, staff, and APS as a whole. Those volunteers we want to represent all of those groups. And so that is getting underway. We'll come back to you, I believe, in October with appointments to that steering committee, and then community engagement process begins in November, but will probably happen at 3 different points over the course of the year. And finally, capital initiatives. The Career Center is taking shape, and we believe we'll have probably good information to share next week, but we expect that working group process will begin in November. Education Center, a community engagement process on the instructional focus is planned to start in October. We're going to be rolling out early information probably late next week on how to participate in that. That work will then be used to inform what they do with the building level planning committee that actually plans for the renovation of this site. And the Reed building, I believe in the next school board meeting, you have an information item on the charge and the BLPC appointments, and then you'll come back on the 5th, and then there's a joint county and school board meeting on the 10th. So just one more reminder to get in that date on the 23rd. We hope people come out and participate.
Just one slight change, and I saw your little motion there, Dr. Cannon. The county joint school board work session is on the 17th, and we actually have a literacy work session on the 10th. So just a couple of highlights. You should be looking for the strategic plan push out if folks are interested in participating. We've got the work session coming up on the 12th on middle school boundaries, and we do live stream those. And then finally, reinforcing what's been said several times this evening, we'll be pushing out some information about Engage Saturday, which is September the 23rd from 10 to 2. And thank you, Lisa, for making mention that it's a drop-in event. It's not the entire 4 hours. You're welcome to travel around, but folks can stop in, spend a little bit of time, see what they may be interested in, and then move along to the rest of their day. I'll stop there. I don't know if board members have additional comments or questions that maybe Lisa and I can respond to.
There are no speakers? Okay, with this first, thank you very much. Excellent presentation, lots of planning going on. The teachers are not the only ones doing a lot of planning. We are too. Let's go with questions and or comments. Ms. Van Doren?
Thank you very much. It was an excellent kickoff to what's going to be a great year. And thank you. And I think, not sure that everybody knows that we really sort of, with a reorganization this summer, we have a planning unit now that is really putting a lot of work into getting these plans in place. And I want to start by saying thank you. While many of us had some time off this summer, this plan and this organization is the work of the superintendent, his staff, Lisa Stengel, the ELT. Dr. Cannon, I know, had very little time off this summer, making sure that we could hit the deck running with these plans in place, the plans to make the plans, so that everybody has an opportunity to be involved, because this year I really like Mr. Boykins' Create the Future. I think we're making the foundation for the future to create the future. And that's what you're doing, and that starts with the good planning. So I just really, really want to thank you for that, because I know, I watched the emails, I know what went into this summer. So thank you very, very much. Just a couple of, one clarification and one comment. The slides should, we have to always remember that people can access this online, right? This is onboard docs, so
Yes.
people can get this PowerPoint and download it and use it to explain to their friends or PTAs what's going on. And we should always be sure to explain things on those so that they can stand alone. But in particular, inclusion on page 9, that's a term that many of us use and we know what it means, but could you somebody just give like a thumbnail? Acceptable use is about talking about one-to-one technology and how we use that and what the guidelines are around that. Inclusion is what? I know, but I'm prompting that.
Ms. Pelch, I was wondering if you might jump in here and provide a little bit of background on the inclusion. I know that the Department of Instruction actually had a retreat today as part of our reorg, and I know that was very successful. So I'll turn to you, and you can go right there.
Sure. So inclusion being students working within the general classroom to access grade level content with their same age peers. So we are working hand in hand with our new department, which will be taking on a new name of Student Services with Department of Instruction, to ensure that all of our students that require special needs have the opportunity to access grade level curriculum within the general education setting.
Okay, so I'm going to date us back to 2012 when we issued a report, the school system did, on serving students with special needs. And one of the second recommendation, top recommendation, was increasing the inclusion of students with disabilities in the gen ed setting more often and to the greatest extent possible. And there's some school systems that do that completely. So there are no pull-out classrooms for special education students. And if we are going to improve our outcomes in this system, that is something that we must do. And it's not just about kids with disabilities, it's all students. It's also second language learners, any child with a learning difference incorporated in the classroom. But in particular, it was a recommendation in that study. And I just wanted to point it out because many of us know what that means, but this will then have an impact on all of our learning environments with all of our students. And it's something all of our kids need, not just for today, but for the future, so that we're all in every environment, not only learning to culturally, ethnically, in every imaginable way, work with each other, but also with people with disabilities. So I wanted to define that one because it's a term of art for some of us, but not for all of us. So thank you for taking the minute to do that. And thank you again for all that work this summer. It was amazing.
I'll just add, excuse me, Dr. Cannon, that that was part of the reorganization this summer with bringing the Department of Student Services and the Department of Instruction together. And the report that you referenced, Ms. Van Dorn, back from 2012, that was one of the recommendations that was part of that report. So just to revisit some of the things that we've done, we did create a planning office that specifically is dealing with many of the things that we're presenting this evening because of the need that we're a growing school division. And we also felt that the opportunity presented itself to make some realignment with the Department of Instruction and also the Department of Student Services. I know today at the retreat, because I was there when it started, there is some dialogue about what that group may be called in the future, so be looking for that to be redefined and a message sent on that. I'll put in my own little bias or belief, but it's probably going to be around the idea of teaching and learning, because that's ultimately what we're about. And all of those groups or all the personnel in those two departments and offices have that responsibility for ultimately teaching and learning, whether directly or indirectly supporting it. So we'll learn a little bit what that discussion was later.
Can I just also note that we have a unique time, and I see this as a depth and a cultivation of staff. We don't have the usual cadre of ELT members, and we have a couple of guests here this evening. I don't know, Dr. Murphy, I think it's a great moment to see the different people, and I see they're blushing a little bit, but I think maybe we should acknowledge that we have some different people here tonight.
Let me recognize Amy McCloskey, and she's our Director of Food Services, and she's here this evening for Leslie Peterson. And you may know of Ms. McCloskey's outstanding work. I had a slide a little bit earlier about our nutritional programs, and she's done a fabulous job. We had a nice summer program for our summer school where we were able to access meals for kids that were coming to our summer programs, and Amy was a big part behind that. And then you heard from Ms. Wendy Pilch, and she's our elementary director in that position currently, but she also served at Hoffman Boston and has served, I'm sorry, not Hoffman Boston, Drew Model, and also as our Title I coordinator. So thank you for being here this evening.
Okay, any other questions or comments on this item? Okay.
All right.
We're going to move on to action items. So we have 3 action items, and they are all policy revisions. First, we have revisions to School Board Policy 25-1.17, Student Safety, Bullying, Harassment Prevention, and School Board Policy 35-3, Employment. Dr. Murphy, is there any additional information to these revisions?
Which
document? Either doctor.
Enough time to get
You
back
have the
here.
same.
I
You
don't.
have the-
Dr. Christy Murphy, any additions? I believe we're in good shape here.
Yes.
All right.
Okay,
Questions?
board members, comments or questions? First, and do I have a motion? Oh, are there speakers?
Are there speakers? Oh,
There are no
that's not my role
speakers,
to
thank
say.
you. Okay.
Okay, I'm trying to help out here.
Let's do this right. Ms. Elliott, are there any speakers? There are not on this item, okay, and is there a motion?
I move the board approve the proposed revisions to School Board Policy 25-1, TAC 17, Student Safety, Bullying / Harassment Prevention, and to the School Board Policy 35-3, Employment.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
And are there any comments before voting? Okay, let's vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Okay, now,
I do have one comment.
Okay.
I just remind everyone that anti-bullying month is coming up. I don't remember if it's September or October. I think it's October. Thank you, our Board of the Clerk right there. So, big important issue So this is great. Thank you, Dr. Murphy, for making sure this is ready.
Yes, yes, and yeah, important to raise the visibility of that issue. Always, every month should be anti-bullying month. But, we will now act on the revision of School Board Policy 35-8.3, contracts and work schedules. Does either Dr. Murphy want to share any additional information?
I don't believe there are any updates.
Nothing new with that?
No.
Are there any speakers, Ms. Elliott? Okay, and is there a motion?
I move that the board approve the proposed revisions to School Board Policy 35-8.3, contracts and work schedules.
Second.
Okay, well, let's vote. Oh, any comments?
I promise no.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion again passes 5-0. And finally, we will act on the revision of School Board Policy 35-8.6, telecommuting. Drs. Murphy?
No.
Any additions?
No.
Okay. Speakers?
We have a speaker on this one.
Okay.
Mr.
Let's
Josh
have the
Fold.
speaker. I'm not sure he heard the guidelines earlier, but pretty sure he's familiar with them. You have 2 minutes, Mr. Fold. Oh. Uh-oh, on our, we will, okay. Our hard copies aren't as up to date as our electronic versions. Sorry
Okay.
about that. It is 2 minutes.
Yeah, this should be fine. Okay. Before I begin, to pause and recognize how fortunate we are that our counterparts down in Texas that have not been so lucky, and my dear friends down in Florida who are readying for Irma. And I know Brevard schools are closed today with no reopening date. So, to telecommuting, I realize tonight is a word revision, but I hope APS can revisit this to expand the telework to classroom staff who could telework on grade entry days and avoid the unfortunate emails like the one that went to staff who were taking online courses just hours before the APS Day of Learning, informing them to report to a school building for that online course. We have said that work is not somewhere you go, but something you do, and hopefully APS will get there for the classroom staff of Arlington.
I think you pulled that off. Okay, and no more speakers, correct? Do we have a motion?
I move the board approve the proposed revision to School Board, proposed revision to School Board Policy 35-8.6, telecommuting.
Is there a second? Okay. Any questions or comments before we vote? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion again passes 5-0. Thank you, Dr. Murphy. Okay, we are now ready for our 4 information items. And the first item is our school board priorities, 2018 priorities. And we're going to put up this slide. For those of you who follow us closely, you will recognize this slide. It's a revision of the slide we saw at our work session and earlier tonight about a number of our processes which happen to parallel our priorities very closely, except we have a few additional priorities that we've added in the pink section at the bottom. So that's, you see the complete list in some form there. So I'm going to just tell you about the priorities briefly. To remind you, we develop annual priorities to keep our work focused and in alignment with our strategic plan goals. In addition to the priorities we're presenting tonight, of course, ongoing work in APS continues to support the current strategic plan goals, and you all know those goals. They're up on the wall, and those do inform ongoing work. This year's school board priorities are to develop the new 6-year 2018 to 2024 strategic plan to support the whole child, a 21st century vision for teaching and learning, and sustainability. To develop policies that address the one-to-one technology initiative, technology use and personal devices, and inclusion. To support and empower teachers and staff. To strengthen school-family community relationships. To implement the current FY 2017 to 2026 capital improvement plan. This includes robust community engagement processes on elementary and middle school boundaries. developing the Education Center, Career Center, and Reed Elementary School sites, and planning for a possible fourth high school, and to develop the next FY 2019 to 2028 capital improvement plan. And finally, to build a sustainable budget that supports the whole child, whole teachers and staff, and keeps classroom learning strong. So those are our priorities. Well, that's this, they're all up there. That's what I was saying. The slide actually lists the priorities. Do we have any speakers?
Yes, we do have two speakers on this item.
Okay.
First is Major Mike Webb.
Good evening again, and thank you. Wow, I generally just wanted to talk about just kind of the disconnect between our priorities and our budget proposal that we just passed, where one of the big standards that we talked about was the achievement gap. And when I look here, I do not see achievement gap really in terms of being like a big focus. This is the thing we have to look at. I mean, like, I don't like to be the bad guy. Well, sometimes I do. But the thing is that in life, in high school, everybody cheers the football hero. Everybody wants to be a football hero. When we become adults and get into the real world, we like to be a cheerleader. And I'm like, yeah, sure. I mean, I love to stand at attention when the flag comes in. I like to go to church and sing the songs and do those kind of things. But sometimes when you're leaders, you have to do the hard things. And the achievement gap has been around for 150 years. We have a study in 2015 where we went out and we talked to kids that are in their schools. So it's primary school. They're coming in, they're reporting that my teacher, my school does not appreciate my culture and my language. The majority of our parents in that study found that they don't even know that there's a minority achievement program. The majority of our teachers in high school, probably one of the big important years in terms of minority achievement, either believe that minority achievement is not their job or decline to say, a very, very interesting kind of nuanced phrase. We have to address the achievement gap. I've submitted a proposal, one, to find out why we have a unique achievement gap here that defies the traditional narrative. But I think that we have to make that a priority, and my time is getting ready to run out, so thank you very much.
And our second speaker is Josh Volb.
I was told I have to say my name or I get in trouble. My name is Josh Volb. It's my 10th year in APS, 18 in the classroom. My family and I live on Columbia Pike. My son is in 4th grade at Hoffman, Boston. I remember being here when he had just gotten into pre-K. My, how time flies. So looking at these school board priorities, I am smiling from ear to ear. But it is wonderful and makes me excited to see what will become. Getting a handle on one-to-one and having meaningful inclusion are simply the right thing to do, and I'm excited to see it. I love the third bullet the most, supporting and empowering teachers and staff. Too often, your employees do what they are told, even if they may think, know, believe that it is not in the best interest of the children in front of them. But a wise person asked me, how will the board know or measure that teachers and staff feel more empowered at the end of this year? I don't know the answer to that thoughtful question, but I hope that the AEA will be at the table and be used to help figure out how to empower the staff and then measure whether or not we've been successful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have, board members, do you have comments or questions? Mr. Goldstein?
I have a question, I guess, for Dr. Murphy, and that is, you know, I'm quite interested in performance measurement outcomes. So once we adopt these priorities, whatever they are in their final form, Are we going to see from you a plan to address each of them so that we can, end of the school year, know how we've achieved or mostly achieved or, each of these?
I think a lot of that was connected with the presentation that we made earlier this evening as far as the action plan material that we presented. And we'll be coming forward with sort of a compendium of documents that will address each of those areas, and then also have kind of a pocket guide, which is very similar to our budget format. A lot of these things are simply implementation, achieving them, getting them in place. And there are a lot of processes that are already either in motion or planning that has taken place.
So there's a connection. I mean, there's a one-to-one relationship between all of these priorities and the planning processes that were articulated earlier?
Yes, very close relationship between each of these.
Okay, thank you. One more quick comment, and that is to the community that's here filling the room, and also those watching, at home on TV. And we would dearly love to get your feedback on this draft set of priorities before our next meeting. It'll be an action item. So this is the work that the school board's going to do this year, and we would love to hear from you on your view of its priority, its appropriateness, et cetera. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Van Doren?
Thank you. The bullets that I think are the most amorphous but most important are support and empower teachers and staff and strengthen school and family community relations. As we were ending last year, we really had an opportunity to engage with the community about what they would like to see. And I think that in this time of change, it's a moment when we have to look at our values and how we operate as a community together and really embrace the change that we must go through, and it's a bit uncomfortable, and do it together in a very constructive way. And I think that Arlington generally does that, while in our larger world, there's a lot of our world that isn't embracing change in a very constructive and is rather doing so in a destructive way. So I personally, as somebody who has grown up and gone through my work years in many changing, evolving private sector environments, with this company buying that company and that company having to merge and different cultures coming together. In many ways, I find that happening again here in Arlington as we add close to 1,000 students a year and become a much more urban school system as opposed to a suburban school system. We're going to be building up and down, not out. We're going to be incorporating more students, different students in our schools. We're just a bigger place with more people, with more cars, more traffic, hopefully more commuting. But in terms of how we handle that and support and empower teachers and staff and strengthen our school and community relationships, to me, that's one thing. And I was really reflecting on that after stepping out of being the chair last year, and it's a very, very demanding job, and one in which many, many people want a lot from you. And there's a lot of criticism that also gets leveled, and I hear a lot of that in terms of people adjusting to change. So there's a book that I read, the first one, there are 3 books that are connected. The first one is called The Anatomy of Peace. The second one I read was called Leadership and Self-Deception, and the third was The Outward Mindset. And they're all put together by an organization called the Arbinger Institute. And Dr. Murphy has a book chat this year coming up on The Anatomy of Peace. And I would welcome personally any member of the community who would like to read that and discuss it with me, to engage in discussion with me on that. I know he's doing it with staff, and I think it's the beginning of a conversation on how we as a community work together, really respect and support each other as we go through this change. And I think in the end, our measure will be going through all of this change well, and the ultimate outcome will be that our children will thrive and succeed in our school system, even as we add 1,000 new students a year. So I'm mentioning that because it is a bit sort of touchy-feely in the old saying, but I think it's something that we have to embrace, and something that my mind was really on last year, and I know it was on the board's mind last year as we got to the end of the year and we're committing ourselves to how we'd be operating going forward. So I commend those books to people. To staff, I commend you if you haven't signed up for the superintendent's chat, do it. I think the book is fascinating. I've given it to many people, and I've had many conversations around it so far this year, and all of them are good, and the website has some, if you prefer videos, they're videos. So I welcome the conversation on how do we support and empower staff? How do we strengthen our family and community relationships in a way that really honor each other, support our kids, and improve our community in a really positive way? So that's my focus for this year.
Mr. Goldstein?
Yeah, thank you. That was very helpful. And is there a date for that, for the chat on that book?
Dr. Murphy, your book chat is October?
I'll have to get back to you. The date escapes me right now.
I'm going to try to pull it up.
It's all right. I'll look for it. We don't
I
have
don't
it
have
right
it
now.
right here. I'll look for it while
I
you
want to
move
say
on.
October 4th, but don't quote me on
All right, well, we'll go on, and we'll announce that date when it is pulled up. I think the speaker's point is very well taken, and several board members have pointed out, absolutely, bullet points 3 and 4 are less precise and less process-driven. That's actually why we had to add the pink section to that previous slide. Most of what we're doing is stuff we're going to get done: strategic plan, processes, developing policies, a lot of really great stuff. But I think those 2 points, 3 and 4, are about our values that we want to make sure are always sort of shine through everything that we're doing, and make sure that that's how we're going to keep our system strong, by having our teachers and staff their morale in good shape, and by good communications, family to schools, and then the school APS to the community. So we will talk and work together over the course of the year and figure that out a little bit more. And the book chat is October 25th.
Just let me clarify, that is an internal chat for staff, and that's the focus. And what I was saying is I also would welcome that opportunity with any citizens to do that in the community, and contact me. We'll get together and do that.
Okay, so clarifying again, October 25th is a staff book chat with the superintendent, and read the book. The next information item, we have 3 information items related to facilities. So first, we will hear about the public water service easement at Abingdon. Dr. Murphy.
Yes, I'm going to turn to Mr. Jeff Chambers, and I mentioned Mr. Chambers and Mr. Chadwick earlier in our tour on a Labor Day afternoon. So, Mr. Chambers, I believe you have this item for information, and I also believe as we move through these, the next one is about the crane swing agreement at Wilson, followed by the architectural and engineering services for Gunston HVAC modernization. So we may just want to progress through each one of those, but we'll start with the public water service easement.
And just to clarify, we do not have any speakers on any of these, right? So yeah, if you just go straight through all 3, that would be great.
I'm
We'll have
handling the first
questions
2, and
afterward.
then Jim Meekle will be handling the third. The first is public water service easement at the Abingdon project. As a condition of the use permit, we basically have to convey real estate to the county for improvements or public uses. And we do have one for Abingdon that was approved in November 15th of 2015. But we need another deed easement because we have to modify that deed because of an unforeseen field condition, which is essentially the location of the existing water line. We had to modify what we were doing there, so we essentially have to modify the easement. And the proposed deed of easement was reviewed by legal counsel, and staff recommends that the board approve the proposed deed easement and authorize the chair to sign the document. It's basically a modification. Okay, the next one is crane swing at the new school at the Wilson site. We've done a few easements, as you may recall, in the past few meetings. This is office building across the street at 1600 Wilson Boulevard. The crane will swing over their property, so we have to get an easement with them on that. And we recommend that the chair execute the crane swing agreement, and the agreement was reviewed and approved by legal counsel.
Good evening. Last but not least, Gunston Middle School. We are having to do a complete renovation of the HVAC system there. That's a major undertaking. We've been advised that it cannot happen in one summer. It's just too much for one summer. So the design is complex too, because they're going to have to design this in a way where we do over 2 summers and also take advantage of any time in between. We've also did a pre-phase this summer, putting some units that were quickly available on in advance. We're going to do some preheating related work in the fall here. So we've got the 2 summers, but the rest will have to be done in the background. Our objective is not to interfere with the instructional process in the school at all. And as the value is over $500,000, we would like your permission to proceed. Any questions?
Okay, so any questions or comments on any of those 3 items, board colleagues? Anything? Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Ms. Van Doren.
I do have a question about the HVAC. Why is that taking 2 years?
Because of the size and complexity and the amount of equipment, and it's a complete change out. So it's larger than anything we've tried in the summer before. Based on our experience at HB Woodlawn a few years ago, it's just too tight to try and put into 1 year. We would probably get in trouble. So we will do as much as we can, but the plan is that we'll transition back to normal school for the year in between without any interference.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions, comments? Well, the crane swing agreement is very interesting. First time this has come before me as a board member anyway. It's going to be an interesting conversation. Are there, have you guys seen that before? That's it for information items. I think we're at the point of new business, and board colleagues, do you have any new business? Hearing none, we are adjourned.